Few things are more unsettling than couples who commit murder together, forging a deadly alliance rooted in violence rather than love. These disturbing pairings reveal how toxic relationships can descend into chaos and devastation. In this piece, we delve into some of the most notorious couples whose bonds led to brutality and, ultimately, to prison. Larissa and Christopher Rodriguez.
You think I don't feel guilty for that? You think I don't? I do, okay? And you're making it worse.
It was a gruesome case.
I was sitting with Jordan. It was like Jordan gave me his life.
The case of Larissa and Christopher Rodriguez serves as a disturbing reminder of how manipulation and criminal intent can lead to a deadly outcome. In 2011, the Florida couple lured Jennifer Jenkins to their apartment under the false promise of assisting her with a job opportunity. Once she arrived, they bound, tortured, and ultimately murdered her, hoping to silence her and conceal their involvement in earlier crimes, including theft and fraud. Their calculated actions revealed a chilling willingness to kill to protect themselves.
Never abused her son. However, she says, Christopher did.
I'll never touch my son.
Did he actually physically abuse him? Did you see him?
A few times that I've seen, yes.
Rodriguez claims on September 21st, Jordan suddenly fell ill. The next day, she says, he died. Detectives confronted her on why she never took him to the hospital.
I was scared.
Of what?
That I was just gonna have all of them taken from me.
As well as a family friend, Maria Cruz. They have prepared a statement. On behalf of Jordan's extended family, we want the court to know that we not only loved him, but we attempted to intervene on his behalf of all the children. Those attempts were rebuffed by both Larissa and Christopher. We specifically recall one opportunity that we had to keep.
Christopher, identified as the mastermind of the plot, exerted significant influence over his wife, Larissa, drawing her into the crime through coercion and their mutual involvement in criminal behavior. Following the brutal murder, the couple tried to cover their tracks by attempting to burn the body. However, the scene soon attracted law enforcement attention. Investigators meticulously uncovered the gruesome details, ultimately leading to the arrest of both Christopher and Larissa.
Rodriguez. These crimes are horrific. There's no question in my mind that this child was abused. It's clear that you did everything you could, you and Larissa, to hide evidence to protect yourselves. You had every opportunity at so many points to make a difference, to get help, to stop beating somebody, to call the police, to ask for help, to try to take him to the hospital. I have to imagine that at some point you got on the internet and said, how do I bury a body? Because this is all.
The Rodriguezes were found guilty of first-degree murder and sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. Their case stands as a disturbing testament to how manipulation within a relationship can lead to fatal outcomes. What should have been a bond built on trust instead became a vehicle for deception and brutality, illustrating the dark potential of a toxic partnership. Jeremy and Christine Moody.
Child molesters do not deserve to live. They got exactly what they deserve.
Jeremy and Christine Moody's deadly actions were driven by a disturbing quest for infamy. In 2013, the North Carolina couple was convicted of murdering Tina and Richard Burke, victims they had methodically targeted over several weeks. Consumed by the fantasy of executing the perfect crime, the Moodys meticulously orchestrated the attack, ultimately luring the Burkes to an isolated spot where they carried out the brutal strangulations.
Worst in court.
Perverts later. That's what child molesters get.
Or what the Moody said outside the court.
It made me mad. They were laughing about what they did. Took someone's life the way they did it. Nobody should die like that. Nobody.
In Union County, Adrian Acosta, Fox Carolina News tonight.
The Moodys escalated their crimes by taking disturbing photos of the victims' bodies as grim trophies, intending to leverage the murders to gain notoriety. Their methodical and detached behavior, fueled by a warped desire for fame, gave them a false sense of invincibility. However, their delusions quickly unraveled when investigators compiled compelling evidence linking them to the killings. Jeremy and Christine were soon apprehended as the horrifying reality of their actions came to light.
Respectively, Your Honor, indictments charging murder, possession of a firearm during the commission of a violent crime, kidnapping, possession of a firearm during the commission of a violent crime, and burglary in the first degree. Defendants are present in the courtroom with their counsel.
In court, the pair was found guilty of double homicide and handed life sentences without the chance of parole. The Moody case stands as a disturbing example of how delusion and obsession within a relationship can turn deadly. When partners fuel each other's darkest desires, the consequences can be catastrophic. Their pursuit of infamy, coupled with a dangerously toxic dynamic, resulted in a crime that stunned and horrified the entire community. Dia and Eric Millerberg.
Gone. Gone forever.
A Butler County family still struggling with that reality.
Our precious Hannah was robbed of an entire lifetime.
At just 3 years old, Hannah wished.
The case of Dia and Eric Millerberg is particularly heartbreaking because it centers around the abuse and eventual death of their own daughter, 16-year-old Amber. In 2012, the Millerbergs were convicted for the manslaughter and child abuse that led to Amber's tragic death. Over the course of her life, Amber was subjected to severe physical and emotional abuse by both of her parents. They manipulated her into sexual exploitation, and over time, their cruel behavior pushed Amber to the brink.
Good morning. This is the time set for sentencing in the matter of the State of Utah versus Dia Millerberg, cases 111-902-292.
They ended up selling their home and buying another home, the home that they had. Obviously, Dia was living a horrible, sickening, and stupid lifestyle. In fact, one of the letters attached to Mr. Harvard's report is from looked at Alexa.
Amber's death came after she had been repeatedly drugged and forced into sexual acts by her parents. In a horrific final act of abuse, Dia and Eric allowed Amber's body to deteriorate from neglect and mistreatment, which ultimately led to her death. The couple's actions were exposed after Amber's body was discovered, and law enforcement quickly unraveled the full extent of the abuse she had endured.
And everything of that nature, and then to come in and say, okay, Judge, you're going to destroy that. But I take these cases as I find them to be. I didn't have any control that it took 3 years to bring this to trial. I have to balance society's the need for punishment, the need for rehabilitation, and I know defendants get tired of this. But with all due respect, Ms. Millerberg, sometimes it's not about the defendant. I know you have needs, I know you have children, I know you have families, but sometimes...
Dia and Eric Millerberg were taken into custody and charged with manslaughter and child abuse. Both received lengthy prison sentences. Their case stands as a heartbreaking example of the devastating consequences of parental neglect and abuse. It highlights how the line between authority and cruelty can be fatally crossed, resulting in profound psychological harm. The Millerbergs' actions not only destroyed their own family, but also left a community mourning the loss of a vulnerable young girl. Cyrus Matthews. Cyrus Matthews was at the center of a heartbreaking murder case driven by jealousy and a need for control. In 2018, Matthews, who had a documented history of abusive behavior, was found guilty of killing his 24-year-old girlfriend, Melanie Moore. Their relationship had long been marked by emotional and physical abuse, with Matthews exerting control over nearly every part of Moore's life. His growing suspicion of her being unfaithful eventually escalated into a violent outburst that ended in her tragic death. Matthews attempted to disguise the murder as a suicide, but law enforcement quickly uncovered inconsistencies in his account. Investigators gathered evidence that pointed directly to him, revealing that the killing was driven by his obsessive need for control. Overcome by the fear of losing more, Matthews chose a deadly path, taking her life rather than confronting the reality of their failing relationship and his abusive behavior. Cyrus Matthews was found guilty of second-degree murder and received a 25-year prison sentence. His case highlights the devastating impact of jealousy and control in abusive relationships. Matthews' behavior serves as a grim warning of how unchecked emotional manipulation and possessiveness can escalate into fatal violence. The case of Mr. and Mrs. Yang serves as a chilling reminder of how deeply ingrained cultural expectations can drive devastating actions within a family. In 2016, the couple was convicted of the brutal murder of their 22-year-old daughter, Yingying Zhang, an international student at the University of Illinois. Yingying had faced intense pressure from her parents, who held high hopes for her academic and personal success. Her decision to pursue independence was seen by the Yangs as a dishonor to the family, ultimately leading to a tragic and fatal outcome. Overwhelmed by what they saw as a deep dishonor, the Yangs devised a disturbing plan to murder Yingying and stage it as an accident. They enticed her to a secluded area, where they abducted and brutally killed her. The case sent shockwaves through the community, particularly because it involved parents betraying the very role of guardianship meant to protect their child. The Yang's crime underscored the devastating impact that extreme cultural expectations and the weight of family honor can inflict. The Yangs were apprehended, brought to trial, and ultimately sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. Their case highlighted the grim outcomes that can result from excessive parental dominance and the harmful notion that a child's purpose is to meet the ambitions of their family. Yingying's death was a heartbreaking tragedy, made even more harrowing by the fact that her own parents were responsible, leaving a community in shock and mourning over such a profound betrayal. The cases involving Larissa and Christopher Rodriguez, Jeremy and Christine Moody, Dia and Eric Millerberg, Cyrus Matthews, and Mr. and Mrs. Yang expose the most disturbing facets of human relationships. Fueled by manipulation, obsession, or cultural expectations, these individuals allowed their toxic bonds to escalate into unimaginable acts of violence. These tragic stories underscore how love, trust, and control can become dangerously distorted, leading to devastating consequences when influenced by deep-seated psychological issues.